or essentially it's
We're good now.
theoretically it's entirely wrong. The earth splits moving, which I think throws me off because they said GPS don't work. Yeah, well, okay, everything that runs off GPS, how do you know it's off? If it tells you the wrong place, how do you know? But Billy Swanks in it, he says, you're an astronaut and you can tie winter. Is there anything you can't do? And she says, not that I'm aware of. Is this thing on?
Yeah.
You're just not talking loud enough.
Yeah, that's not an issue.
See?
Heavenly Father, we welcome you into this house to come together and worship you and study your word and try to gain some understanding in how you, as you relate in our lives today, how you related in the lives of them then. As we know, they say that history repeats itself, and this is so true in many aspects. We just felt to see it, thinking that our time is different than any other time in history. We thank you and we welcome you and ask that your Holy Spirit come upon us and give us understanding in your word. We ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen. Phrase, those who do not study history are doomed to repeat it. That technically not maybe word for word, but the idea is that history repeats itself. And it doesn't really repeat itself, it's just that people think they're different. Okay? People today are no different than people that were here 1,000 years ago. Same attitude, same judgments, same, you know, lifestyles, it's all been the same. And there were homosexuals in the Greek times, there were homosexuals in Roman times, there were homosexuals in caveman times. Okay? People did evil in the eyes of God since the beginning of time. So people are evil in the eyes of God now. The only difference is that how do you project the lie? The difference would be how does this world view your viewpoints and how you do things. Well, we're going to kind of study in Exodus 14. We look at God's interaction with people and how we perceive God's interaction with us. Now in Exodus 14, we find where the Israelites were wandering in the desert. Okay. Now Moses, they looked at Moses for guidance. Okay. Moses got his guidance from God. It says, then the Lord said to Moses, tell the Israelites to turn back and encamp near Pi-Hahiroth, between Migdol and the sea. There they are to encamp by the sea, directly opposite Baal-Zephon. Pharaoh will think the Israelites are wandering around in the land of confusion, ended by the desert, and I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and he will pursue them. But I will gain glory for myself through Pharaoh and all his army, and the Egyptians will know that I am the Lord. So the Israelites did this. Now, at your job, if your boss was to tell you, hey, I need you to sweep in a circle, why don't you sweep in a circle? Me, I'd sweep in a circle. I get paid by the hour, I don't care. Okay?
You did it too.
Yeah, you just have to circle it. Okay? You can stand there and just do this if you wanted. Right? Or you can put it like all the way around the building. But the idea is that you just do what you're told. In this case, the Israelite people, they did what they were told, but they still whined and complained. And I see this a lot throughout Exodus, a lot of whining and a lot of complaining. But God had a plan for all of this, and his plan was bigger than what they could see. What they saw was Moses said, hey, we're going to go over here. So they went all over there. Okay, we're getting away from the Egyptians, we're getting away from them. And then Moses says, no, we're going to get back over there. We're going to go back over there. And the whole time now they're thinking, we ain't gone nowhere. The Egyptians are going to come over here and kill us. And what was one of their complaints? What, did you bring us out here in the desert to die? We could have died in Egypt. Okay. It's so easy that when you're out of a captive state to look back and go, I had so good, 3 square meals a day, had a place to sleep. Oh, so they woke me up at 3 o'clock in the morning. They threw all my stuff on the floor. So they woke me up at 3 o'clock in the morning and told me to come out here and stand in the rain. I didn't like it. Being told what to do. And I think it's the big issue right there. They're being told what to do. They weren't asked their opinion. Okay, now, when you find that run into people that think they should be in charge, okay, they don't have the full big picture. Okay? Then these Israelite people didn't have the big picture. Probably some of them were elders in the community, right? And then Moses most likely wasn't coming and going, hey, here's God's game plan. We're going to wander around aimlessly, so that the Egyptians think that we don't know what we're doing. All right? He probably didn't tell them. So that's what they did, and they wandered around. They said when the king of Egypt was told that the people had fled, the Pharaoh and his officials changed their minds about them and said, what have we done? Let the Israelites go. We lost our work power. Okay? These people weren't smart. That was their big thing. They thought that because they did menial labor, they were not intelligent. Okay? And we make that mistake today many times. You think because somebody's working for you that they aren't as smart as anybody else. And a lot of times it's not true. I mean, there are people out there that like to be in charge so much that when they find somebody that is better at being in charge than they are, that they reluctantly hold on to their position instead of finding something that they, instead of advancing yourself. You get in a rut, you get in a hole. And as Christians, we do that. We get in a rut, we get in a hole, when we should be trying not to climb out of the hole so much as very better. Climb out of the hole or not to make it bigger. What they said was the proverb of it said that when you find yourself in a hole that's getting bigger, put down the shovel. There's another one that there's a farmer and his donkey fell in the pit. They tried to pick the donkey up, they couldn't find something to pick the donkey up. They couldn't get him out of the hole. So they thought, well, he's in the hole, it's done. We'll just throw the dirt in the hole, bury him. And every time they threw the dirt in the hole, the donkey would stomp on the dirt. Pick his feet up, stomp on the dirt, and pack it in. And after a while, the donkey's head started to emerge out of the pit. So, and the analogy to that is that if you're in a hole, use what you can to make life better to get out of the hole. Okay? God gives us the tools we need and the opportunities that we need to get out of the hole. Okay? He doesn't pick you up out of the hole because you don't learn anything from that. Anybody that's lifted out of a hole, they say if it's a hand up, hand out. Somebody gives you something to help you out. You should use what you have. Going to work from the inside out. You should use what's available to you to expand yourself. Christian walk. I mean, I'll give a commemoration here. Cindy, when we were doing the NIV or King James, and she goes, I can't understand it. I can't understand the word in that. And I agree with her. King James, I don't like these, those, days, and that's, whatever they want to put in there. To me, it all sounds like the same word. It's like saying da 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 in a sentence, and you don't get them. But she changed in a version she could understand, and she asked questions. I think it's great. I like people asking questions. To me, that's fantastic. 2 things. If I can answer the question, I can start. Okay. And if I can't answer the question, then I can learn with them to find the answer to it. Okay, so when I'm at work, I was telling Jerry earlier about this, so you're going to get there. I said, I would love you to ask me questions. I said, I do not like the person I'm training that just stands there and stares and doesn't ask me anything. If you're standing staring at something, you're lost. When you can just ask me the question, we cannot be lost together. Okay? And the third thing is, I like to show people how smart I am. So I can't answer the question. And then to together we find out how smart we are. So, vanity on my part, okay, but I like to assume that I'm smart. You know, told my nephew once. Yep, I told my nephew once. I said, you should never have a job where your boss is not smarter than you are. Okay, I said if you can do your boss's job, you should never be his subordinate if you are smarter than he is. I heard. I said you should always strive to do better. You know, and he said because he told me I said what did he do? He told me what he did. I said what's the boss do? And it was like two things different. I said well you're doing the boss's job. You know? But I had that philosophy when I first started working where I was at. And I got a supervisor who goes, well, I've been doing it this way for 15 years. I said, you've been doing it wrong for 15 years. I said, it's not the way you're supposed to do it. You're supposed to do it this way. And he didn't like me, which is fine. I don't care. You don't have to like me. I need smart people to make it out. Anyway. When the king of Egypt, though, when they found out that all the people were gone, he had a revelation. Well, what do we do? You know, oh, my help's gone. So I got to repopulate my workforce. So he said, well, they're not smart people. They're not military people. You know, so we'll send our armies out to get them. Right? Well, I don't know if it's philosophy or what is it, that if something's running away from you, it doesn't matter how fast you are, they're not coming back. You got to really convince them that that's where they want to be. But I guess the one that pops in my head is a rabbit runs at like 45 miles an hour. A greyhound can run 55 to 60 miles an hour. But if a greyhound's chasing a rabbit, he can't catch it. Okay? And they say because the fight to flight is faster and drives you more. And so in this case, the Israelite people were running from the Egyptians. So it doesn't matter how fast they go after them. It ain't going to be one of these things where they're overcome and they're going to go, oh, you caught us. Let's go back. But God was leading them away from that. But like I said earlier, Moses and telling the people, you're going to go over here. I'm going to go over there. We're going to go over here. Okay? And it didn't seem like they were going anywhere. Right? So all of the Israelite people are like, hey, you see the Egyptians coming. They're coming to get us. Why did you leave us out into the desert to walk around in circles so we could die out here? I could have died in Egypt. Right? Like I said, there's a lot of complaining. I see a lot of complaining in Exodus. But I think it's complaining because they're just doing what they're told and not being instructed before they're doing what they're told. Okay? Being part of the military, you're not always told the game plan. You're already told what you're told to do. So the idea is when you're in there, and I've had a lot of Marines that were stupid. My brother was here, I would have said the same thing. The idea, they're told that, yeah, you guys run onto that beach, take the beach. There's a lot of machine guns out there, and some of you are probably going to get killed, but I need you to run on there and take the beach. And I've met Marines who are like, oh, can I take a bullet for you, dude? I'm like, yeah, you're stupid. Yeah, I'd rather hide behind the tree and let the tree take the bullet, But nobody from the Army I've ever met that ever said that. The Army guys were like, well, the tank out there first, hide behind it. But like I said, the Marine guys, the Air Force guys, they were like, if I just sit at home and drink a cup of coffee while I send you somebody else who can do it. Well, I was on a submarine, and the first conflict I was in, had the Cuba system on.
Yeah, that's just, I forgot to send it earlier.
Oh,
So you just did that?
Yeah, I just did that.
technology. All the things that make us better, that slow us down. So, we got here that says, Moses answered the people, do not be afraid, stand firm. You will see the deliverance of the Lord will bring you today. And he's telling them, he said, look, I know you can see that army over there. What do you got? You got donkeys, camels, you know, you got your maidservants, you know. You don't have any army with that is not as described, right? The army of God. Now, God spoke to Moses, right? Any time that I see in here when he talks to people was when they become so unruly, you know, like when Aaron had built that calf, you know.
I didn't know it.
Huh? Aaron. Aaron.
I was being smart out.
Aaron. Oh, that's a different issue. That's a funny thing, and I watch it. It's so hilarious. Anyways, when they went and built that calf, because Aaron wasn't part of the chain of command. Okay, Moses went up on the hillside and he's talking to God, and they said, "Where? What are we doing?" Let's do what we always did. And they said, "Well, build us a God that we can relate to." You know, and what was his thing? It was like, wasn't me, I don't know. His thing was, we threw the gold into the fire and a calf jumped out. It wasn't me. I had nothing to do with it, right? So they passed the buck. But I'm getting at is that the people were, they thought they were living in the dark. Okay? Moses had a bigger plan because God gave him the ideas of a bigger plan. Okay? But here he tells the people, he says, do not be afraid. God's going to fight for you. Okay? The God that put the plagues on the Egyptians. Okay, you saw that. You know, the God that brought us out of captivity. He said, you were a witness to it. You know? And here he said, yeah, you can see that Egyptian army out there. But God is going to fight for you. God can protect you. The same God was with you the entire time. Okay? How quickly do you forget about God? Whenever you're feeling it, you're in trouble. So the Egyptians you see today, you will never see again. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. So in other words, just tell them, you just need only to trust. That's what you need to do. Moses tell them, you just need to trust. You need to trust in the fact that all them plagues you saw, right? When they didn't hit you, and only hit them, okay? That was something. Whenever, when the water turned to wine, and when we put blood over the doorway, and the angel of death passed over us, and all the Egyptians and their animals, they all died. Yours did not. Look at the evidence. That's what Moses telling them. Look at the evidence, everything that God has done for you. Do not forget him, and stand firm, right, and believe, and God's going to protect you. He's going to fight for you. So then the Lord said to Moses, why are you crying out to me? Tell the Israelites to move on. Raise your staff and stretch out your hand over the sea and to divide the water. So now they wander around, and this is all God's plan. They all wander around confused. Right, well, so it appeared to be. And that was all for the benefit of the Egyptians. Okay? So what they saw was, they're like sheep that are lost out in the desert. It just takes us to corral them in, show them that we're here to protect them. How many politicians do you hear that? There's a great analogy of politicians where the axe goes out and tells them, the trees, you should vote for me. My hand was made of wood. I am just like you. Right? And then once the axe gets elected, it cuts all the trees down. Okay? But here we have the Egyptians that are coming out here, and God makes it look like the Israelite people are just wandering around aimlessly, like they don't know where they're going. And that was the purpose in it. Okay? If you ever seen somebody playing chess, have you ever seen competition chess playing? I've seen one where the guy goes like this, makes a move, and the other guy knocks his king over. I'm like, why didn't you play that? In their heads, they played out the entire chess match. Right, in the first move, he says, well, he did the Westminster chess move, and he would have had him in checkmate in 5 moves. I play it out. You have no idea which moves I'm going to do. But, in this case, God knew the outcome of the chess match before he knows the outcome of everything. So anyways, he had the Israelite people walk around like in stupor. That was for the Egyptians. Right? He wanted them to think they had the upper hand. He wanted them to think they were going to win. Okay? And the idea was of that is so that he could show his glory. Here, the Israelite people, they see the Egyptian army, and it's like massive. Okay? The first things they think of, we're doomed. We're doomed, you know. And God says, you're not doomed, because my army is greater than any army on the earth. You just can't see it. We do have scripture, and I can't think where it's at the top of my head, but God's army is revealed to the servant, I think of Elijah. He said, open his eyes, and he said, battalions upon battalions of army, angel armies. I mean, there was nothing close to that. I think the Egyptians had like 300,000 men, you know, sent out after the Israelites. You can tell if you see her. I don't remember that. It said it with
600 chariots, 100 chariots.
yeah. But they had a lot of, if they had chariots, the Israelites didn't have anything. They had God.
You know, it's interesting, before long, they're fighting battles.
Yeah.
You wonder where they got the weapons.
Well, whenever the next part here, when we get where the flood waters receded, and he said that they passed over on dry land. Okay. Has anybody ever been at the bottom of a lake or a pond? Mud. Yeah. They jump off the iron bridge. Guys just jump off the iron bridge, and they said you got to tuck your feet up, right? Because if you go down straight legged, you're sticking mud. Now that's a river. Okay. Now I don't know if it's anything like on massive amounts of water. You know, like Lake Erie. I was trying to look at Lake Erie and stuff like that. It's a freshwater lake, but on the ocean, the bottom is just muck. Okay, and that's on the ocean. So I can only imagine that, you know, the Red Sea, which isn't a freshwater source, it's probably all muck, right? But when God received the water back, I mean, it was dry land. I mean, it wasn't like, it said they passed over on dry land. So the chariots, you know, they didn't get stuck in the mud until after the Israelite people were already gone. And God made it muck. You know, he's like, well, no, we don't have to be dry anymore. And then they were the ones that were confused and scared. You know, they didn't have God to fall back on. They didn't have a teacher or a leader that was speaking to God like Moses was, giving the guidance that they needed. There it tells us, stretch out your hand over the sea and divide the water so that the Israelites can go through the sea on dry land, dry ground. And I will harden the hearts of the Egyptians so that they will go in after. And I will gain glory through Pharaoh and all of his army, through his chariots and his horsemen. And the Egyptians will know that I am the Lord when I gain glory through Pharaoh, his chariots, and his horsemen. And I can imagine watching it. In my mind, I watch this out, and I think that, you know, here I am, I'm a part of the Egyptian army, and you go, look, they're passing through, the ground's dry. We are so much faster than they are, right? So we can get in there and get them. They're stuck. Water on both sides. Where are they going to go? You know? They have nowhere to go. And before they can get to the other side, we can catch them, right? And now, whenever you're in the military, that attitude is drilled into you. You know, our submarine, like I was in submarines, and the idea was that our technology is more advanced than anybody else in the world until it comes to budget time. Okay, it came to budget time, they would go before Congress and say, you know, the other countries that are developing these new submarines, and we need to be a better submarine to combat what they have, because what we have now is good. It was always good enough. You know, being on them, you know, they're always good enough. So, and they tell you that your army is only as great as the men that serve in it. Okay? If you have a poor attitude in your army, the whole army is going to have a poor attitude. You know? But then again, if you have an over-exaggerated attitude, you know, like I said about the Marines, rushing onto the beach, you know, I can take more bullets than you. You know, that's pretty stupid. You know, that's an attitude. And they're willing to run onto that beach and get shot at, you know, because they're doing a good thing. So they think. Anyways, what we're getting at here is that God is guiding all these aspects of things. Okay. He put on the hearts of the Egyptians that they could do better. Okay. Pharaoh and them guided them, said it wasn't so much to say, well, you're going to do it because I'm your Pharaoh. Pharaoh probably never spoke to the armies. Right? He had generals that did that. Okay. They had people underneath them that did that. It's a whole pyramid effect. And that does work. The pyramid effect does work. When you have 20 guys in a battalion, in a group, and they answer to one person, okay, and have another 20 guys that answer to one person, another 20 guys that answer to one person, okay, and then all those 4 guys that they answer to one person, okay, but you have a large army, right, and everybody has, they say, those 4 guys answer to one person, and then the other groups, 80 or 100 guys, and those 4 or 5 guys, they answer to one person, and those 2 people come together and they answer to one person. Okay, so that's the idea. So whenever they go to ask a question, okay, that one person, they don't have to ask 10 people what's going on. They only have to ask one person. Okay, in this case, God knew what was going on. God projected down His authority and His plan to Moses. Moses told the people, this is what we're going to do. Now, he probably went to the elders and said, this is what we're going to do, right? And then they told the rest of their people, this is what we're going to do. Okay, because it's easier for one person to guide a small group of people, right, than it is for one person to guide a large group of people. So you just break it up, right? Now, that one person tells those 5 people, this is our plan. I want you to take your 20 guys, I want you to go over here. You can take your 20 guys and go over here. So that one guy is just going to tell them 20 guys what to do. He ain't going to go tell the 40 guys. He's going to tell one person. So in this case, he's telling the Israelite people, he said, they're going to wander around the desert for a while. And God tells me, he says, I stretch my staff out over the ocean. I want everybody to go across. Okay? Now, imagine the Israelite people were probably thinking, why would that work? You know, it isn't until they see that it's dry ground, you know, and they go, oh, it's dry ground, you know, and then they rush across. But back to what we said about the Egyptians, they saw it was dry ground and thought, we can get them.
They became fish.
Yes, they did. They became, yep. And so anyways, that was God's plan. God has He has the plan, but He has control over the entire desert. Okay? But what God loves to do is let us think our own moves. He gives us guidance, but He lets us think our moves. Right? So when you go out into the world, you go, say, I used to really think that the disciples that went into other foreign countries, they were like China and stuff like that, they knew their life was on the line. Now, it ain't so much that, where they said that you don't win a battle by being willing to give up your life. You win battles by taking the enemy's life. You know? So when all these guys going, I'm going to die for my country, and I heard, I think the general said, well, that's well and good, but we don't look for guys that are willing so much to die for their country as they are willing to live for their country. So, anyways, God gives us the guidance. We just have to try and utilize it in how we do things. And we don't always use it the right way, but He's there to give us more guidance. All you have to do is ask. And it tells you in there, in the scripture, that when you ask, He's such a generous God, He's willing to give you. Like flour, He used to say, like potato chips. You know, some settling may occur in this bag. God gives you a bag of potato chips. They settle, puts more potato chips in. They settle, puts more potato chips in. They settle. You got a bag full of potato chips, right? You don't just,
Anytime I've gotten potato chips,
You
I've got
get
that
dog
full of air.
eggs.
yeah, you don't just have that bag full of air, but when God gives you the blessings of, say, potato chips, you got a bag full of potato chips. And they're all crumbles. They're full chips. You know? He stacks them in a way that they all like Pringles, you know, right on top of each other. So when God gives you the blessings to help you through anything in life, you know, He'll give you every tool you need. But the thing is, You got to get it from Him, right? And He's the one that gets the glory for all of it because it came from Him, right? If somebody gave you the winning numbers for a lottery ticket and you won the lottery, you say, "Well, I got it from Bill." No, he didn't say that. You know, came to me in a dream.
Yeah. You know, give it to you, Bill.
Yeah. You want to give it to Bill, but God looks for all the glory. God doesn't need anything. He created it. You know, how can you give back gold to somebody that created it? You know, the thought came to my head earlier today when you see these people out there that say how great hell's going to be, right? You know, I'm going to have a beer with my buddies. I'm going to rest it down there in hell. It's going to be like a little bit of warmth, you know, but we can do it. I look at it this way: the one that created hell knows exactly what it's like, and it ain't. You know, He ain't telling those people. You know, he told others what it was like. They aren't believing that. What they're believing is what somebody that didn't create it is telling them what it's like. You know, here's a jalapeno and pineapple lollipop. It's fantastic. You know, there ain't a whole lot of things I don't like, but jalapeno and pineapple is disgusting.
You think?
I've tried potato chips that were jalapeno and pineapple, and they are disgusting.
Why would somebody even do that?
Some sick person out there likes it, yes. I say that sickness because I don't like it. Now, I've eaten some pretty disgusting things, but
That's in combination sweet.
yeah, my favorite sandwich, I don't tell anybody what it is.
Yes, you did. It's bad.
I did, but I take that to work with me and I eat it. So, but when I'm eating it at work, I don't tell anybody what it is. I keep it to myself. Nobody comes up and asks me all the time what I'm eating. You know? So, but getting off subject a little bit. But God set the playing field the whole time. The Egyptians thought they had the upper hand. The Israelite people thought we're going to be doomed, right? They're going to kill us, right? But and the middleman, Moses, he tells them, "Look, I don't know where you're getting these thoughts, right? God said He's going to fight for you. He's going to protect you. And you got to have faith. You got to stand strong. You know? All God wants you to do is just follow Him, right? He tells you to run across the desert, the sea, the bottom floor of the desert sea, and do it. God told Peter to come to me, right? Jesus walked on the water. Peter saw him. He says, "If you're truly the Christ, call me and I'll come to you." Right? He called him. And then Peter didn't lose faith until he looked down and saw the turmoil that was around him. So he took his eyes off Christ. Then he sank. Okay? But if you keep your eyes on God, you don't sink. All right? There are fallbacks and there are learning curves. Because if you don't have learning curves, you don't learn. Okay? Some people think, "Oh, I live the Christian life. Oh, everything I want, you know, 3 square miles a day, I own a house, a big lot of land, you know, all good and glory." And it ain't the way it works, you know. And Jesus didn't tell his disciples, "Hey, go out, no one will bother you. It's the easy life." You know, you tell people about me, they'll be like, "Oh, thank you." They'll come fawning over you, they tell me more, and that ain't the way it works, right? Even the disciples, the apostles, the prophets, everybody that was bringing the word of God, they all had setbacks. I mean, I'm trying to think of the prophet's name. I think it's Elijah, when he battled the Baal, the prophets of Baal on the top of the hill. I mean, yeah, he destroyed over 200, 300 Baal prophets, man. He called upon the name of God and
Oh,
boom.
Samuel. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Samuel heard God calling out in the middle of the air.
I get them all confused.
I don't feel too placed. Samuel heard voices 3 times in the night. You know, I hear voices all the time. Sometimes there's people there talking.
Sometimes they're not.
Yeah.
That's the one we're concerned about with you.
When I'm at work, I told them, I said, "Hey, I hear voices all the time." And a lot of them go, "Yeah, I bet you do." I said, "So if I don't answer you right away, you know, it's because I'm waiting to see if there's a body coming who's with the voice, you know." So, I mean, I don't answer all voices. You know? Sometimes I heard the voice and I go, hey, I can hear your voice calling my name, but I don't see the body. If you're not there, I'm not answering you anymore. So I don't think I'm in bad company. It's like Samuel heard God call him 3 times. So I just haven't gone, here I am, Lord. What do you want? That's crazy. But Moses told him to run over to cross the bottom of the sea. Right? And here it says Moses stretched out his hand over the sea. All that night, the Lord drove the sea back with a strong wind and turned it into dry land. And the waters were divided. And the Israelites went through the sea on dry ground, with a wall of water on the right and on the left. That had to be an amazing thing. I mean, if the plagues didn't switch you, right? If the angel of death passing over your household didn't switch you, which that would have been traumatic, not good, right? Here I am traveling across the bottom of the ocean. And I got a wall of water on both sides, and I can picture, like a whale swimming past, a fish or an octopus,
I don't think I would slow down and look. I would.
I think
Excuse me, but I'd get the age.
I think he'd have to stop and look.
I don't think I
got
would.
600 chariots coming behind you.
As you're trucking like this,
I might
a
catch
long
something.
way to travel.
I might catch something according to my eye or something, but I'm gonna keep moving. I'm not gonna.
I mean, you gotta be.
You just gonna
there's
take
gotta be.
pictures.
There had to be a child along the way that's going, Grandpa, don't bother you, boy. We're trotting here, Here, let me carry you for a while, so you can just talk in my ear while instead of going on with my tasks. But that had to be such an amazing thing, right? All these things that are happening, I don't know how the Israelite people just didn't go, woo, amazed at the miracles of God.
But you know what though? If you look around every day, even now, every day, you see miracles.
Yeah,
Every day.
that is true. We don't see them as miracles. I mean, not as dramatic as, like I said, big walls of water and dry land.
No, nothing like that, but there's still everyday flowers growing, trees sprouting, everything. Miracles every day. A new baby.
Yeah, there's people out there that seem to think that the birth of a child is equivalent like cancer. Okay, and there's I watch YouTube videos of these preachers that stand out there, and the lady says that my body, my choice. He goes, okay. He goes, that's not your body. He said, it's not your body. So it isn't your choice. He said, that's an entire different life form. He said, you do not get to choose the death of another life form. And she goes, but it's not a life form. He goes, most certainly yes. And then one woman was there, and he said, how did you get that non-life form in your body? And she said, well, you mean another person has sex. He goes, where's their decision? He goes, well, it's not his body. He goes, but he helped you do it, right? So, that whole argument to me is, you can argue one side of it until the other part comes into it, and then you're going, and there's no argument. The whole time it's usually just, this is my argument, it makes sense to you, this is my argument. And after they were passing through, and it said wall of water on the right and on their left, the Egyptians pursued them, and all of Pharaoh's horses and chariots, his horsemen followed them into the sea. And during the last watch of the night, the Lord looked down from a pillar of fire and a cloud of the Egyptian army and threw it into confusion. So, it wasn't so much that they were probably amazed at the wall of water, right, on either side. But God threw a cloud on them. Like, you ever seen the movie The Fog? Right? Or anytime you see where the fog comes running in when you drive in the morning, and fog everywhere, right? It's hard to see. I slow down, and I try not to, but yeah, a lot of times you have to. You have to slow down so you get a better viewpoint of what's around you. You can't see them 10 feet in front of you, so you slow down. My big fear when I'm driving down the highway is that, I'm gonna look up and see 2 beady eyes with antlers in front of it, and I don't have time to stop, because they've been on the road. So the Egyptians thought the same thing. When they saw the Israelites crossing through, they thought, "Ha, we got it. We got them. You can't get away." Like I said, all the water out either side. It ain't so much they saw the wall of water, but what they saw was tunnel, channel. Okay, so they started running in, and as they were getting in, God threw a cloud on them, and they were confused. So here it is, they see the Egyptians right in front of them, or the Israelite people in front of them, and now all of a sudden, they don't see them anymore. Okay, fog set in. They were like, where'd they go? You know, now, they were right there in front of us, now they're not. So, but they kept going, because they were told to keep going. And once the fog set in, I imagine that with that fog and the confusion, and God started putting the mud back in, and their chariots couldn't go. Right? So not only what they couldn't see, they had mud and muck, and there was confusion. Now, there's confusion without the cloud that God puts on it in everyday life. Okay? When we go tell people about God, a lot of them just look at you and go, "How do you know it's true? How do you know it's true?" They have a cloud of confusion on them, right? And God doesn't lift the cloud of confusion off you until you come to a realization that God is real, right? You come to a realization that Jesus is the Son of God. But Paul had a cloud of confusion on him, right? He was blinded by a light. It wasn't until he realized that Jesus was God, right? That he's the Christ. It wasn't until that bright light came upon him that he realized, hey, I've been living in darkness this whole time. Now I see there's a light in front of me. Okay. I wanted to try and get into Exodus 16 because of the more of the God revealing Himself to the people on a level where they understood. But I wanted to catch a little. Oh, here it is. God had him wander around for a reason, and all through history has shown us the end of the plan. And no one could be sure that the Israelite people did not. Okay? So when we look at this part of history, much like Jonah and the Ninevites, Jonah didn't know what was happening with the Ninevites. God told him to go do this, right? And he went. He didn't agree with it, but God had a bigger plan. God told Peter he was going to deny him 3 times. Okay, Peter didn't believe him until it happened, and then he had a revelation. And then we covered Paul. Like I said, Paul was the biggest advocate. He said that when the vote was came to be cast, my hand was the first one to be raised. Right. So Paul was against Christ, but he had that cloud of confusion on his face, right? Until he realized that God needed him for a bigger purpose. Whenever the light hit him, he was able to see. Then he truly was able to see. And at this point, to sum it up real quick, the Egyptians had the cloud on their eyes, and it wasn't until the water was ready to fall on that they came to the realization that God was real. A lot of people don't realize that God is real until sometimes it's too late. My Brother Richard said about the guy he worked with, he said, "I'm just going to wait until right before I die, then I'll accept Christ and Savior." He said, "Well, when are you going to die?" He goes, "Well, no." So good luck with that. And the irony of it is that we honestly expect people to live a lot longer than 50 years old. I don't know how many was when he died, but the irony of it is that him telling that guy that, and then his passing as quickly and unpredictable as it was, probably set strong with that guy, thinking that, some people ask, why do some things happen? Well, some things happen for another reason. Maybe that guy was led to Christ at that point whenever passing my brother because of what he said to him. That's it. Yeah. So when you go trying to realize when am I going to die? Maybe it's soon, and then You know, somebody you think's gonna live a lot longer than they do, and then you go, it makes you think. But it did make you think. I'm gonna just close here, and I'll teach you next Sunday, week 16. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for bringing us together to study your word. We thank you for enlightening us, lifting the cloud of doubt from our eyes so that we may see what is written in your word and how it applies in our lives. May it be with us as we go about in our business today, days to come. Be with Jerry as he brings the message. We ask this in Jesus' name.